Hi, welcome to another episode of the HealthScore Longevity Report. This week we're looking at wildfire smoke. Is it deadly, and how to minimize your exposure? Personal note, I grew up in the Northeast and wood fires were quaint. I associate them with log cabins in the woods and Christmas and holidays. Only until I moved to California from the East Coast was I exposed to wildfire smoke. And even then, it still had quaint connotations to me. I remember in San Francisco when everyone was locked down inside their apartments because of an air quality index in the mild range. I would go outside and be playing tennis because I thought of that shortness of breath you get with the wildfire smoke to be a challenge rather than a real health risk. Well, I study factors that are modifiable and that affect mortality, and I thought I knew all of them until I read this article. Because indeed, wildfire smoke is more dangerous than I had realized, and this article really brought it home for me. So the study was published in the Lancet Planetary Health in September 2021. The journal has an impact factor of 29.8, and the researchers asked, on a global level, does wildfire smoke exposure increase mortality? To give you some background, we are seeing an increase in wildfires. Since 2001, there's been a 77% increase in daily population exposure to wildfire smoke. In the United States alone, there's a 5-fold increase in annual areas burned since 1972. So it's understood that there are 3 factors that contribute to increased wildfires. One is climate change, involving high temperatures, which lead to dry vegetation, as well as droughts, strong winds, and lightning strikes, which can fuel fires and initiate them. Growth of the wildland-urban interface, so more cities in the world and proximity to wildlands. And then forest management practices. There's actually been a curtailment of prescribed burning. Not only has there been historically an increase in wildfires, there's projected to be an even greater increase going forward. This map shows the projected increase in wildfire potential by mid-century. There could be an additional 2 months per year of wildfires by the mid-century in these areas. When we're talking about wildfire smoke, we're not only talking about wood burning, we're talking about man-made materials burning when wildfires reach urban areas. When we're talking about wildfire smoke, the most concerning component of it is PM 2.5, which is particulate matter that's less than 2.5 micrometers in diameter. This size particle is small enough to get into the small vessels of the lung, the alveoli, and to cross into the circulation. So what's already known about the health effects of wildfire smoke is they increase the risk of getting asthma, they increase asthma exacerbations, they increase heart attacks, strokes, they cause lung damage, impaired lung function, and they cause increased risk of lung cancer. It's also known that they increase all-cause mortality. But what wasn't known before this study is the effect of wildfires globally. Studies of mortality were known for regions and cities, but not globally until this study. So this study looked globally at the question of, does wildfire smoke lead to increased mortality? They looked at 749 cities in 43 countries from 2000 to 2016, a median of 14 years of data per city. And they looked at all-cause mortality. These were the sites where air quality was monitored and mortality was assessed. In the U.S. alone, there were 210 sites, and this graph shows the peak concentrations of wildfire-related particulate matter over the study period. You can see the higher amounts in the Northwest. The researchers found that, indeed, exposure to wildfires smoke increase relative risk of mortality. Every 10 unit increase in particulate matter led to a 1.9% increased risk in all-cause mortalities. And they found that the risk of all-cause mortality leveled out at about a PM 2.5 of 20. Now, this, I think, is the most shocking finding of the study. You would think that as wildfire particulate matter increased, risk increased, and that it wasn't all that great at lower particulate matter levels. Well, it turns out that at a level of 20 PM 2.5, which is an air quality index equivalent of 68, you saw the greatest harm from particulate matter on mortality, and the risk didn't even get much higher after that. That's considered, AQI of 68 is considered moderate, which is generally considered acceptable air quality. So the shocking finding of the study was that at what would be considered by our current standards to be a low level of pollution caused the greatest damage to health. Overall, wildfires accounted for 0.62% of deaths during this period. That doesn't sound like a lot until you understand how seldom wildfire smoke levels were elevated. Nearly 90% of cities had a mean concentration of wildfire-related PM 2.5 less than 2. Wildfire pollution only occurred during the wildfire seasons, which constituted a very short period of time relative to the whole study period. Why does wildfire smoke lead to increased death? My initial thought would have been, well, during wildfire smoke, it's harder to breathe, and being harder to breathe, it's harder to get enough oxygen to your heart, and having not enough oxygen to your heart leads to a heart attack. But it's actually more complicated and more insidious. These particles that get into the circulation lead to oxidative stress and inflammation. They lead to dysfunction of the lining of arteries, making it harder for them to vasodilate or relax. They lead to oxidation of cholesterol, which leads to atherosclerosis, and they lead to plaque destabilization, which leads to blood clots. I'm going to now talk about a second article on the topic of wildfires. This one focuses on things we can do that are proven to work to decrease our risk from wildfire smoke. So this article was published in September of this year in the journal Circulation. And I'm going to outline 8 steps you can take to decrease risk from wildfire smoke exposure. So the first is to know what the PM 2.5 or the AQI is. And you can do this with apps like IQ Air. You can even set notifications to tell you when the PM 2.5 increases. The next step is, when indoors, keep your windows and your doors closed to prevent air pollution from getting inside your living space. And it's easier to focus on a clean room in your house rather than trying to keep pollution out of every part of your house. In your clean room especially, throughout the house if possible, make sure you have HEPA air filters running, either centrally or portable units. Number 4, prevent any added air pollution from things you do inside your living space. These include burning candles or incense, using gas, propane, or wood-burning stoves, having a fireplace or using aerosol sprays, frying or broiling meat, smoking, tobacco, obviously, and vacuuming. Number 5 is, when you have lulls in air pollution levels outside, take those opportunities to air out your home. Open the windows, open the doors to allow circulation and removal of indoor air pollutants. Step 6 is to plan outdoor activities. So I don't recommend avoiding going outside, but smoke pollution typically follows a diurnal pattern where it peaks and goes into troughs during the day. You can figure out when air quality is best in your area during wildfire smoke exposure and use those periods to get outside, go for a walk, run errands. When you do go outside, it is important to wear an N95 mask, cloth masks, bandanas, putting a shirt on your front of your face are not helpful. And finally, there are automobile modifications you can make. So when you are in your car, keep the windows closed, run the air conditioner and have it on recirculate mode. Consider a special HEPA filter for the air filter in your vehicle. And about every 15 minutes, if possible, open the windows to prevent carbon dioxide accumulation in your vehicle. So the key takeaways are that wildfire smoke is deadly. I'm adding it to the specific modifiable factors and adding information about how to prevent wildfire smoke exposure to the program that I lead. Next is be aware that low levels of wildfire smoke exposure, we're talking about AQI of 68, confer the highest risk of death from wildfire smoke. And finally, take steps to minimize your risk, environmental strategies and tactics, monitoring your air quality to minimize your risk. Thank you.